Welcome to this lesson on how to use Git for collaboration. I've outlined the steps we need to take to start using Git for collaboration in 16 simple steps, and all the way we're going to take it to GitHub. So I believe you must have created a GitHub account already, but even if you've not done so, you can always do that in less than 1 minute. So we're going to take step 1, which is we setting up our Git identity, your personal identity on Git, so that when you make changes on your code and you send the code to GitHub, it should be recorded on GitHub that your name made so changes that appear on GitHub. All right, so what we're going to do is to take that step 1. So we could either open terminal here, okay, or we can as well open an external terminal here like Git bash. We will use Git bash, which is the one that comes with Git after its installation. So we're going to navigate straight into our project. I have my project here on documents, and I have a folder again that says web projects, and inside web project I have a project called my app. All right, so we're going to track changes that happen to this project using Git. So step 1, which is setting up our identity, we're going to say Git space config -- global. So we're saying global means that we want this configuration to be available throughout our system or directory, so that if we create another project on a different directory, we won't have to do this setup again. So we want it to be global. Then I'm going to say user.name. You would have to specify the name you used on GitHub. Okay, so now I'm going to hit enter. So I successfully configured that. Next thing I'm going to do is to configure my email, which is the same email I use for creating my GitHub account. So I'm going to say once again git config space, again I need to make it global. Then I'm going to say user dot email. Then I'm going to add my GitHub email right there. So it has to be the email you use for creating your GitHub account. So I'll successfully configured that. So we have completed step 1. Now the next thing we need to do on step 2, just before we get to step 2, you need to make sure that Git is initialized on your project. So right here I could tell that Git is initialized because I can see git ignore. So git ignore includes all the files that you don't want to track, but that's by the way. So what about if Git was never initialized on your project? What do you have to do? All you have to do is on the project directory, you're going to say git space init. Then you run it and it's going to initialize Git on your project. All right, so now let's go over to step 2, which is staging. Now what does it mean to stage? Now think of it this way. If you want to track changes that happen on your code, you need to find a way to segment the different things that happen on your code. For example, if you made a styling change and then you made another change that has to do with logic, and you want to track these 2 changes separately, what you probably need to do is to first add one of those files. Maybe the file you made a change that has to do with styling, you add it to the staging area. Then you're now going to track that file differently before you go on to the next one. So the staging area simply just means that whatever file you have on the staging area is the file that you can track. Then you can then track another file. So how would you track changes, or how would you add files to the staging area? What you need to do first is to check whether you have any change that has been made. How would you check? So you could simply do git status. When I run this, it's going to give me a rundown of what is going on right now. So it tells me that I have nothing to commit, meaning I've made no single change my project. So what I'm going to do is to open a file. It really doesn't matter which file I open, but I'm going to open page.js and I'm going to make a tiny change. So this that says get started by editing, I'm going to say get started by updating. So I've made a change. So when I save this, you're going to notice that something is going on here. I have modified this file. Git is the stuff giving me this information. So if I run git status once again, you're going to notice that something has changed. Now it tells me that on branch master, changes not staged for commit includes this particular file because I made change to this file. So once again, I'm going to make change to another file, make a change to another file. So I'm going to remove perhaps every single thing on, okay, let's just remove a few and keep the rest. Perhaps I'm going to remove everything. So I removed every single thing on globals, the CSS, and once again, if I run this git status, now you can find that here. So how can I add this particular file to the staging area without adding this? So what I need to do is this. I say git add, just as simple as that. Then I'm going to specify the file I want to add to the staging area, which is app/page.js. Now I run that, it has successfully added to the staging area. If I run git status once again, you're going to notice that the file I just added to the staging area has turned green because now it tells me that I need to commit, which is what we have on stage 3. Okay, but before I commit that, let me still show you one more thing. If I need to add, maybe I still have maybe 2 more files here that is not yet staged. Perhaps I'm going to make another change so that I have multiple changes made. So I'm going to delete one file here, maybe this. I delete that, and now I'm going to run git status again. And you can see I have multiple changes there. So what if I want to add every single file that is on track? I want to add them to the staging area. What do I need to do? All I have to do is to say git add space dot. Dot means everything. So if I hit enter, it has added all of that to the staging area. Once again, I'm going to run git status. All is now green. Now, next thing I need to do is to commit. When I commit, I'm actually tracking those changes that happen when I commit. And I'm going to have to write a short message to describe the change that happened. So here, how do I commit? I'm going to say git space commit, then dash m. Now the m means message. I need to add a message. So I'm going to say quote open close, and I'm going to say that minor general, it doesn't have to be so long, changes. Then I'm going to hit enter. Now when I do git status again, you're going to see that I have a clean working area. It tells me nothing to commit, working tree is clean. Now that is how we do commit. Now what about branches? The idea of branches is to create copies of your work so that when you develop something that is working, you've written a code that is working, you're probably going to keep it on one branch so that you don't tamper with it, and then you go on to test some other things in a particular branch which is meant for testing. But then when you get something working, you put it on a particular branch that is meant for keeping only what works, while you use another branch for testing out every single thing you want to test. So the best approach is to use the master branch for keeping every single thing you've worked out that is working the way you want them to work. And then you create another branch. Usually I call it test. You use the test branch for testing out things. So how do I create a new branch. All I have to do is to say git branch, then I give the branch a name. I call it test. Now what is going to happen is that it's going to copy every single file you have here to the new branch you just created. Mind you, you must have no pending change before you create a new branch. I don't have any pending change, so make sure you don't have any change that needs to be committed. Okay, commit all of your changes before you try to create a new branch. So now how can I tell the branch I'm currently sitting on? Right here on the bottom left, you could see master. It means I am currently on the master branch. So how do I go to my new branch, which is called test? All I have to do to go to a new branch is to say git checkout, like the way you check out of a hotel room. Then you say test. When I execute that, it takes me to my test branch, and you can see every single code that I had on the master branch was copied here. Now you're going to see the beauty of this right now. If I make a change here on the test branch, you're going to notice that that change will not be available on the master branch because I made that change on test and I don't want it to be on master. So any change I make here will not reflect on any other branch, but except this particular branch I'm sitting on right now. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go once again to, let's try layout and do a quick cleanup here. We could say that my app everything about programming. So I made a change, and now what I could do is to stage and commit. So I'm going to say git add. I simply use the dot to add everything, even though it's just one file. This what I'm going to do is to commit, and I'm going to say that I changed app generic info. Now remember, I changed what was here and here. Now I'm going to check out to my master branch, and you're going to notice that all of this change I just made are not going to be available on the master. So I'm going to say git checkout master. Now I am on master, and you see the old thing is still there. All right, so how do I get all of the changes I've made on another branch to appear on a different branch? All I have to do is this. Remember, you must stage and commit on the branch you made all of those changes before you try to bring them into another branch. So what should I do? All I have to do is to say git merge. I am on the branch that I need to bring changes into. So I'm going to say git merge, then I mention the name of the branch I am bringing those changes from, which is test. So when I hit enter, it tells me that it added 4 additions and 4 deletions from a file called layout. And if you check here, you can see that those changes now reflect. Okay, so let's go on to the next one, which is pushing to GitHub. So we've taken care of branches and merging. So now let's go over to the last one, which is pushing your code to GitHub. So what we're going to do is to go to GitHub and create a new repository. So we're simply going to give it the same name we called our app locally, which is my app. So I'm going to call it my app. We don't need to add any description. Let's leave it public, and then we'll go ahead to create. All right, so now all you need to do is to head over here. We need to point this repository right inside what we're working on here. So we need to find a way to connect that repository we just created online with this one we're working on remotely. There has to be a relationship, a bridge that connects this one to the one we have online. And how do we create that bridge? All we need to do is to either use this link, okay, but you have a better option, which is this. You need to highlight from here all the way to this. You don't need to include the .git. You don't need that. So simply copy that. What are we trying to do? We're trying to add a remote, okay? Git remote add. So we adding this link to the one we have locally is what is referred to as a remote. So we're trying to add a remote. Now, mind you, this origin right here is just a nickname that points to this lengthy link. So anytime we want to refer to this link or this remote, we're going to refer to it as origin. All right, okay. So we could simply just write it out on terminal. So by saying git remote add. All right, so whatever remote I'm going to add, I need to give it a nickname. So usually it's best you simply say origin, but it really doesn't matter, but you use origin. Next thing we're going to do is to add the directory https://github.com/your username, which is in this case early code tech, then / once again the name of the repository just created, which is my app. Then you run that. If you didn't find anything returned, it means it was successful. Now if you want to check it out, you could simply say git remote, and it tells you have a remote with a nickname called origin. So now how do I take all of these changes I've made, all of this code I have here, how do I send them to this repository on GitHub? All we have to do is to push our code to GitHub. How do we do that? So now there's a requirement we're going to need, but let me go ahead and do this so that it's going to prompt us. We're probably going to get an error message or something prompting us that, hey, you need something. So how do we push to GitHub? We're going to say git push, then you mention the nickname of the remote you want to push to. In this case, it's called origin. Now, when it gets to GitHub, it needs to sit on a particular branch when it gets to GitHub, and you are going to decide the branch it's going to sit on when it gets to GitHub. So the best practice is, if you're pushing right from master, also send it to master, and that is it. So it tries to do something, we give it a moment, and now it prompts us with something. So it tells you to sign in. The best approach to sign in to make sure that you're sending code to a Git repository owned by you, you need to sign in to GitHub. So, but the best way to do this is to use a token. So how do I get a token? How you get a token is this. You're going to go to GitHub and you're going to click on your profile photo, and you're going to click on settings. When you get here, go to the left hand panel and scroll down to the bottom where you're going to find developer settings. On developer settings, you're going to click on personal access tokens. Use the one that says classic. All right, so you can see I already have one here and it expires on May 15th. I could delete it, but it doesn't matter. So all I have to do is to generate a new one. You click on generate new token, and then once again we're going to choose the classic format, and we'll click on that. You're going to give it a note, so I'm going to say that, mind you, this token you're about to generate is going to work subsequently for every single project you're going to be working on. So you don't need to generate a new token anytime you're working on a new project. It's going to work for all of them. So I'm going to say that for everything. Okay. And now what do I need this token for? I only need it for repository operations. So I'm going to tick repo, and that is all. And I scroll down to the bottom and generate token. Now I've generated it. Copy that. Mind you, the moment you refresh this page or leave this page, you're not going to have access to this token anymore. You just have to generate a new one, or you could store it. But then if you authenticate once, it will not ask us to authenticate again. So I'm going to paste it right here, and I'm going to sign in. So while signing in, you probably need to return back here and check out what is going on here. You see, it has, the moment I got authenticated, it sent every single thing to my GitHub repository. You might want to check it out. So you come back here to your home and go to the repository you just created, which is my app. You're going to find all the codes there. There we go. All the codes are there. Remember, if you have any challenges, post them on the comment section of this video and we're going to attend to it. And if you find this video quite helpful, please let us know by hitting the like button. Thank you.